Hey, Strategy Simplified, it's Japheth here, and I'm quickly popping in to tell you about Strategy Sprint. Strategy Sprint is a week-long virtual consulting project that allows you to add US-based work experience to your resume. So you work in a small team, you get mentored by a former McKinsey, Bain, or BCG consultant, and you solve a strategic growth issue for a real-world client. So that means you gain incredible skills and experience that looks amazing on your resume. We are running several sprint projects throughout this year. Check out the dates and the link to register at the link in this episode's show notes. We look forward to welcoming you to a future Strategy Sprint project.
Welcome to Strategy Simplified. My name is Noah, and today on the podcast, I'm excited to bring you this conversation with Venora, a recent Doctor of Pharmacy graduate from the University of Illinois who landed an MBB offer. Listen as we discuss Venora's journey to consulting, his non-traditional background, and how he made the most of the advanced degree pipeline to land a job at BCG. Well, welcome Venora. We're so excited to have Venora within Awasm, a member of the management consulting community who just landed an MBB offer with BCG on with us today. So welcome. Can you start us off with just a brief intro and a high-level overview for us?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I've been a long-time listener, so it's great to be on. Just a quick background about me, I guess. I grew up in Minnesota. My parents are both PhDs in physics, so from an early age, really like an interest in science. I had a big interest in science. And so I kind of took that with me to college when I went to Emory in Atlanta. And I wanted a job that would be high impact and would impact people in a positive way. So was pre-med at the time. But throughout my time in college, kind of realized I didn't want to be pre-med. And really the turning point for me was when I saw my friends studying for the MCAT. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. And so then I thought to myself, like, Venora, if you don't want to study for the MCAT, which is like maybe a couple months, like what's going to make you want to do 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency on top of that? And so that was kind of where I realized maybe medicine isn't for me, because I think you have to be all in to want to pursue that path. So I decided to shift my focus to pharmacy, just because that kind of gives me opportunity to take a clinical route if I wanted to, but also work in the pharmaceutical industry if I chose to do that after school. And so that kind of is how I landed at pharmacy school at University of Illinois in Chicago. So I just graduated from there in May. And throughout that time, I kind of had some experiences doing pharmacoeconomics research that kind of pushed me more towards the business side of the industry. And from there, it was just kind of how to best enter that. And I decided that consulting probably was the best for me, which I know we'll get into why I decided to pursue consulting later as well. But so once I decided to pursue consulting, then did that, and I'll be at BCG starting in September now.
Well, congratulations. It sounds like it was a long road. So I guess at which point in Illinois did you really decide, hey, I want to go into the business realm? Was that kind of early on in your doctor degree or later, or where did that fall?
Yeah, I would say kind of the big inflection point for me was the summer between my second year and my third year of pharmacy school. Kind of the tail end of my second year, I decided I wanted to pursue the pharmaceutical industry more, because my second year of pharmacy school was when I did that cost effectiveness research for this disease called myasthenia gravis with a professor at U of I. And so after doing that, I decided I wanted to pursue kind of the business side more. But I was kind of lamenting the fact that I had my friends over, I was just talking about how you have to do a 2-year fellowship in the pharmaceutical industry usually to get into that kind of work. And that's basically where you get paid like half of what you would get paid normally. And it's like a 2-year training program. And my friend was like, dude, just do consulting. Because a lot of my friends work in consulting already. And they're like, yeah, we hire PhD, MD, pharmacy people all the time. And that was kind of the turning point for me, because I didn't even know like that was even an option. And then from there, just throughout my third year, just did a bunch of research online, and kind of came across Management Consulted, came across this podcast, all the articles, networked with some people who had gone from PharmD to consulting as well. And then eventually just decided that consulting was the better option for me as opposed to pursuing the fellowship. And so yeah, that's kind of how I landed in consulting. And then as far as why consulting, I guess, if that was part of the question too, is like, I just thought that it would be high impact, just like I wanted early in my life. And then it would be a little more dynamic compared to like medical work. I found like just being a clinician to be a little bit repetitive. I did work in a clinic as well during school, and I found it really fulfilling. We were working with patients who were like pretty low health literacy at that time on the west side of Chicago. And I found that really fulfilling, but I also found it a little repetitive. I found I was having the same conversations over and over again with patients, trying to educate them about their medication and about their diet habits and stuff like that. So I found consulting to be still high impact, but also a little more dynamic, and a little more of like a learning opportunity for me, just because of how much you're exposed to different industries and different companies.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I think you echoed a lot of reasons that a lot of people, kind of decide to take that path, something they can do, especially early in their career where they can work with real clients, have a real impact, and potentially easier to get into than other paths. So you came from this advanced degree pipeline, right? From this doctor of pharmacy program. And I think most people would say that's a little bit non-traditional compared to the traditional, say, undergraduate path, or obviously a lot of people enter through an MBA program, especially in the MBB. Can you tell us a little bit more about, and just tell folks in general about what the advanced degree pipeline looked kind of specifically for you? What events you attended, what that specific timeline looked like, just a little more there.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say at a high level, I think there's a lot of similarities actually between the pipeline for ADCs and MBA and undergrads, in that like you still have to network, still have to drop a resume, and do like basically the same exact case interview process. I think there's two main things that are a little different. The first one is that you kind of have to be a little more selective about your firms. So I would say if you come from like a PharmD, MD, or like a life sciences PhD, which is kind of the bucket I would say I'm from, then you have to focus on MBB or like a life sciences boutique firm, because those are the only ones that probably have like really robust pipelines to take people from PhD, train you, and then go into consulting. And then the second one is that they have a lot of these bridge programs that will take place in the fall before you in the spring a full year before you graduate. So for me, that was spring of 2022. And so I guess to go more specific to me, starting in like January of 2022, which is my third year of pharmacy school, I was networking with people at the firms that I was targeting, which, like I said, life sciences, boutiques, and MBB. And then also I used Management Consulted to get my resume ready during that time. Then applied to those programs. Those deadlines are usually February, March, April. So applied to those in that time, got accepted to Bridge to BCG, as well as one other life sciences boutique firm's bridge program, and completed that Bridge to BCG in April of 2022, and interviewed for my first round interview in May. So I think those bridge programs are really unique to the ADC pipeline. I really recommend it to anybody because it gives you basically two shots. So usually if you apply and you get rejected, you have to wait like a couple years to apply again. But if you apply and get rejected from a bridge program, you can literally apply the next summer, like 3 months later, to their full-time recruiting. And it'll put you on their radar too. So like, if they didn't like you enough to put you in the program, they might still encourage you to apply full-time. And then the second thing is that it kind of gets you connected into the firm, gives you an opportunity to network with a bunch of people at the firm and build a network of people who are also all applying, so you can like practice case interviews with them and stuff like that. But yeah, so.
Yeah, no, and a quick plug for our listeners here for these bridge programs. Obviously, BCG has them. A lot of other firms do as well. Not just for advanced degree candidates, but also for candidates from underrepresented backgrounds. There's a lot of programs like that, typically in the spring, depending on application deadlines. So just to clarify here, you graduated in 2023, so you graduated a couple months ago, but you did all of this about a year and a half ago. Now, when you interviewed and you received your offer, you say May. That was May of 2022, so May of the year before you graduated, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and that just kind of highlights the importance of figuring this stuff out as early as you can, because these deadlines are are so early. So diving a little bit more in depth into your kind of application, networking, all of that. Do you have any sort of pro tips, specifically kind of one for each piece, one for networking, one for your actual paper application, so resume, cover letter, what that looked like for you, and then one for the interview process?
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Have you ever heard a new digital trend and thought to yourself, okay, does this really matter? Asking the right questions helps you cut through the noise and get down to what matters most. I'm Jim Hertzfeld, host of the What If, So What podcast, where we discover what's possible with digital and figure out how to make it real by asking what if, so what, and most importantly, now what? Subscribe and listen, and together we can turn big ideas into tangible actions so you can get shit done.
Yeah, for sure. So for networking, I found this to be probably the most like awkward part of the entire process. But I would say my one pro tip is to ask people why they like the firm that they're at and what interested them in that firm when they were applying. And the reason for that is it gives you great insight into the firm that only someone on the inside would know. And then what I did is I just like cut and pasted people's answers that I found were relevant to me into my own answer, basically. And I think that's great because, one, like if you talk to people who are of similar background of you, coming from PhDs or PharmD or MD, a lot of their stuff they say will probably be very pertinent to you. And then secondly, you know those answers work because those people got offers at those firms. And then for resume/cover letter, I would say try to be as data-driven as possible and have a number for every single bullet point. Try to quantify your impact as much as you can. And then for the interview, I would say start your case prep early, but also don't have like a really extended time window. So for me, I did like 8 weeks, I would say, where I basically did like one case every day. That'll get you up to like 40 to 50 cases, which I think is how much you probably need to become proficient before you become like so tired and robotic that you've done like 100 cases. And it can just get really tiring to like be doing cases. Like I felt really tired at the end of the 2 months even. So that would be my pro tip. Oh, and then one thing too that I forgot to mention about the bridge programs is that, so like I kind of mentioned how it goes on your radar. Like McKinsey basically sent me an email that was like, I didn't get accepted to McKinsey Insight, which is their bridge program, but they sent me an email like really encouraging me to apply, and then like, oh, click this link so you can be in our Keep in Touch program. And basically the Keep in Touch program is where they email you like once a week, random stuff that they put together, I guess. And one of them was just a link to a survey. And the survey was just a bunch of regular questions like, what's your name, what's your degree, etc. And then the last question was like, are you currently doing Bain Advantage or Bridge to BCG? And if so, like what day is your first round interview scheduled? And I put, I'm in Bridge to BCG, first round interview scheduled like sometime in May. Next day, a recruiter from McKinsey emails me like, we'd love to set up a first round interview with you like in late May or whenever you can fit it in, please let us know. So like it kind of creates this like, they're all competing for the same people. So kind of creates that concept. And so basically like just applying to McKinsey Insight would have gotten me probably a first round McKinsey interview as well. I mean, I declined it because I got into BCG and so I didn't want to, I guess, interview at McKinsey, but I would have had that option just because of applying to McKinsey Insight. So that's also another advantage is that like it puts you on their radar and they're very competitive amongst each other, amongst the three firms.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a cool perspective to hear, kind of about the competition there. Not something that I'd heard before. That's super interesting. Jumping back to the networking piece of things a little bit, how much time would you say that you allotted to networking, both on kind of a week-to-week basis and on a larger timeline scale? Like, like how long before you planned to resume drop, plan to interview, did you start networking? How much networking would you say you did? How many people did you reach out to? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think this is probably one part where I would not do it the way that I did it, knowing what I know now. But I started in like January, really with like targeting networking once I knew which firms I wanted to apply to. And so I would just reach out to like 3 or 4 people usually talk to one or two from each firm. And I think it would be helpful to talk to one, to spend more time on start earlier, I think, with networking. And then to do more as well, as far as like reaching out to a couple people from each firm, so that you're more likely to get someone who you gel with and who would probably give you a referral or a good recommendation to the firm, rather than just shooting like one shot and then going, oh, I guess that person didn't really like me. Like, that's it. I'm just going to like drop my resume now, like without any referral. Because the two programs I did get into, I had really strong referrals. One from a buddy from Emory who I played basketball with, and then another one from the BCG one is from my best friend from high school. His wife works at BCG now. So I think like if you have a really strong referral, that helps you a lot getting your resume in the door. So I guess to answer your question directly, I spent about 2 months, probably about 2 to 3 hours a week max. I think I wish I did more, basically. Spend maybe 3 or 4 months, yeah. But yeah. 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 I guess I had one shot and I got it, so.
Well, congratulations again. But in terms of the networking piece, would you say, aside from the kind of specific people that you knew beforehand, obviously you're coming in at the consultant level, so the traditional kind of post MBA advanced degree level. Would you say that the majority of the people that you networked with were at that post MBA level, were at the analyst kind of post undergraduate level, were at the partner level? What was the kind of who were you talking to?
Yeah, I would say almost exclusively I talked to people who were from PharmD, PhD, or MD backgrounds and had started relatively recently at the firms, or probably still at the consultant level. I think I just felt that if I was going to cold, like basically LinkedIn message somebody, I didn't want to go too high up the chain to like try to cold like LinkedIn message a partner or something. And I felt like that their experience and their advice that they could give me would be most like relevant, because they had just gone through the process maybe less than a year or two ago, and they had the same background as me. So yeah, that's, as far as networking goes, that's who I was talking to.
Hey, Strategy Simplified. It's Japheth here, your producer, and I really quickly wanted to pop in to tell you about Black Belt. So if you're targeting a consulting role at a firm like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte, Oliver Wyman, Accenture, you name it, Black Belt is a structured case prep program that might be exactly what you need to push you over the hump and land that offer. So it is a structured case coaching program where you'll get one-on-one coaching from a former McKinsey, Bain, or BCG consultant. You'll also get a year of free access to our new community for exclusive employer info sessions, training, master classes, community support, and much more. Last but not least, you get unlimited digital materials to support your case prep progress. Oh, and by the way, over 80% of Black Belts who complete the program land a consulting role. That's pretty incredible. So we'd love to see you inside of Black Belt. Join at the link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the episode.
I guess pivoting back a little bit into just sort of your general process, what would you say your best resources were in terms of preparing, thinking about this stuff, research? Were there specific books, websites, resources that you used more heavily than others?
Yeah, I mean, I guess not to be like a corporate shill or anything, but I would say Management Consulted 100%. So I would say I started just by Googling random things, and Management Consultant's LinkedIn's like articles obviously show up. So, and then I will be honest too, I paid for the Black Belt program. And one thing I did want to mention during this podcast overall is that like, I do think it's expensive, but it's like a very great value, because I think the first thing I want to point out is that like, if you do get a consultant level offer at like an MBB firm, like you're going to pay that $2,000 in like a fraction of your first paycheck. So it's well worth it from that perspective, very cost effective. And then secondly, like they provide so much value that I think it's well worth if you have the money on hand. I know that's a privilege to have the money on hand. And I was fortunate for that, but I do think that like they were extremely helpful. So like my resume was basically perfect because they helped me to identify where I should be like putting more numbers in and how to like exactly craft it to like show the maximum impact that I had in the organizations that I was involved in. And then also they help you with interview prep, which I thought was really important to have like an expert in your corner. So I practiced a lot with my management consulting coach, as well as my friend who works at BCG, my friend's wife who works at BCG, who's also my friend, but who works at BCG. Interviewed with them like once a week each. And that way it's not really the blind leading the blind. Like if you practice with other people who are interviewing as well, which I was also doing, sometimes like if you haven't gotten feedback from a professional person or someone who works in like strategy consulting already, you won't be able to provide as good of feedback to your partners either. So I felt that was really instrumental in like me being able to provide good feedback and to reflect on my own process and my own interview skills better, was having someone in my corner that helped me. So I would say management consulted was my biggest, and I like watched all the podcast episodes too, everything. So pretty much management consulted, but I also use like the other like online things like My Consulting Prep, M Consulting Prep, or My Consulting Offer, M Consulting Prep, just all the things that are basically online. You can read basically, you could read for hours and hours and hours, and which is basically what I did throughout my whole third year of pharmacy school. But yeah, I didn't use any of the books. I know that like they're popular books, but I didn't read any of those personally.
Well, that is that's great to hear. We're glad you utilized our resources in that way. Quick disclaimer here: Venora was not paid to say any of that.
No, I was not.
Very, very organic.
No, yeah.
But yeah, just kind of more living proof that the program really does work. Obviously, 80% of black belt black belt participants receive at least one offer. So an effective program. Kind of pivoting away to a harder part of the process, what would you say you found the most difficult during your consulting prep? Was it coming from kind of a non-traditional background? Was it something within the specific process? What did that look like for you?
I would say the hardest part probably, well, I think that a couple of barriers that I guess I overcame, I would think, is that like coming from a relatively, like PharmD is not a common degree to really work in management consulting. So I kind of overcame that. I think the biggest thing with that is that if you come from a non-traditional background or a non-target school, is in your education section of your resume, if you have like strong test scores or a really strong GPA, to include those and make sure they're right at the top. Because I think what a lot of firms are doing with target schools is they're really just using a proxy for like the quality of the candidate. So if you can show that like you are smart or you're like a quick learner in other parts of your resume or in your education section, just in a different way than by having a target school name, I think that's really helpful. And then the other thing is that when you don't come from a target school, there's not as many resources. So that's also why I really would encourage people to apply to the bridge programs, because once you apply to the bridge program, then you get really plugged in. So like I was the only person in my entire graduating class pursuing a management consulting job. So that can feel really isolating and you don't have people to lean on. But as soon as I got into Bridge to BCG, I just had like this whole network of like 20 to 30 people who we all had gone to the Chicago office and like been a part of Bridge, to like practice case interviews with and like kind of go through the ups and downs of like a very stressful process, I would say. So that was probably the most difficult part, is just like managing kind of how isolating it was a little bit as far as within my degree program, and then just managing like emotionally the highs and lows of case interview prep, and knowing that like all this prep is going to go into kind of this 1 hour moment, where you're either going to like do it or not. So I think that's can be a lot of stress, at least for me it was. So having people in your corner, people to help you out like through that, who are going through the same thing, is really helpful.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think it really does take a village in a lot of cases, and having those kind of people around you and looking for ways to build that community as you progress through this process is a really important part of success, right? Even just from a case prep perspective, being able to work with other people and not just kind of go it alone.
Right.
What would you say you most enjoyed about the process? Was it kind of finding those friends? What was the best part about this whole process?
Definitely. I mean, honestly, you hit on the head. Definitely finding those friends, because I would say that 6 to 8 week time period, like I said, I was probably doing 5 cases a week. So basically I'd go to pharmacy school, come back home, like study a little for pharmacy school, and then do like a case interview with somebody I met at Bridge or somebody I met through like Management Consulted. And just that community is so awesome because everyone's kind of going in the same direction, has the same aspirations. And like a lot of times we would, do the case. They give me a case, I give them a case that's like probably takes an hour, 15 minutes tops. And then we'd stay on for like another 45 minutes just to like talk and chat. So I have a lot of friends that are still like, that I still connect with that are from there. And so that was definitely the best part of, I would say, doing, is just meeting people. And people at the firm too. Meeting people at BCG was awesome as well.
So what are you most looking forward to about starting at BCG this fall? Obviously you start fairly soon. What are you most excited for?
I think honestly is just to like, I've never really worked in a corporate environment before. All my past work experiences, relatively speaking, are either academic, like research oriented, or like clinically oriented. So like in the hospital, in a clinic. And so I'm just excited to like work in kind of a more corporate environment, do something that's so different from anything I've ever done before, and just like how much learning and growth I know I'm going to experience just by being in such a different situation. And then, like I said before, like meeting a bunch of like smart, driven, and really interesting people like through my work as well is probably the two things I'm really interested in doing at BCG.
Well, I mean, it's an exciting road, and we here at MC are very excited for you. Pivoting a little bit before we let you off the hook here to something a little more fun. You mentioned in your resume that you're an avid kind of hiker and camper. I am as well. What is do you have a favorite hike or a favorite hike recently? What's a really memorable outdoor experience that you've had?
Yeah, so this summer I actually just I did like the Mighty 5 road trip across like southern Utah. And that was super awesome. It's like basically just a bunch of red rocks, red canyons, like super amazing hiking. I would say my favorite one out of those 5 was Arches National Park, just because of how close you can get to like all the rock formations. And my favorite hike there was probably like, it's called Devil's Garden. And there's this arch called Pine Tree Arch, which is like a really big, probably like 30-foot tall arch. And it's kind of like a picture frame because through it you can see kind of just the plain lands and the other rock formations. And so it's kind of like it's like just a picture basically with a picture frame of those red rocks and the arches. And then another favorite one is like Torrey Pines State Park in San Diego. I think that's so cool. You just like hike up to Vista Points basically and just look out over the Pacific Ocean. It's really beautiful there as well. So yeah, those are I just love being outdoors though, but anything to get me outdoors, like in nature. Yeah.
No, I mean, it sounds like it, and that sounds like you paint a beautiful picture with your description of that. No pun intended. Last question here. You mentioned that you've been to 22 countries and you have a 100-country goal. What has been your favorite country to visit, to spend time in? Any kind of memorable experiences from travel?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's such a privilege to travel, and you can learn so much just from being around different cultures and different people. But I think my favorite place I've ever been is Thailand, probably. And like a funny story I have from Thailand is that me and my buddy who I was traveling with, we went to the full moon party it's on like the island. It's called Koh Phangan. And that island, there's really not that many good ways to like get around. So we rented scooters, like motorized little like bikes basically to go around. But the traffic is kind of crazy there. So we're like scootering around, and like this is the first time I've ever driven a scooter. So we're like scootering around. It's very hilly, like in this island. And we had met 2 other of our friends there. So we had 2 scooters, 4 of us. And so I had to drive the scooter with this one buddy I met who, little heavier guy, like really tall, heavier guy. And I don't know like how we made it up the hill, but like the scooter was like putting everything it had into it to go up the hill. So that was a really good time. And like Thailand is awesome. Food is cheap and super good. The people are so nice. It's beautiful there. Like I love nature, obviously, so it's beautiful there. But yeah, it was a really great time.
No, again, sounds incredible, and and very jealous of your experiences there. Well, Well, anyway, that kind of wraps us up, but thank you so much for being on today. It's been really exciting to hear your story and to hear about kind of your journey from this non-traditional background. And congratulations on your offer, and we're excited to see what you do at BCG.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and I hope this was helpful to everyone who listens to the podcast. So,
thank you for listening to this episode of Strategy Simplified. If you are inspired by Venura's story and want to break into management consulting yourself, work with our crack team of ex-MBB interviewers and case coaches to get yourself there. All of our coaches are highly vetted ex-MBB consultants who only work with us. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review or email us at podcast@managementconsulted.com with any questions or feedback.